Welcome to Spooky News for November 8th, 2019. We've got some good stuff to get to, and let's just get right into it. It's just a reminder that Spooky Ventures and our Spooky YouTube channel is supposed to be interactive, so if you've got things you'd like to see on our spooky videos, if you got something that should be added to our playlist, let us know. Please leave comments on our videos. Like them, share them, subscribe to the channel, and let us know how we're doing. A couple in Scotland, well, actually, the woman spotted it first. She was out walking her dog. Spotted what looks like UFOs circling over their home. Um, and the Daily Record has a article about it, and you can check out more about that there. But it's kind of some interesting stuff. According to Birmingham Live, a lady in England believes she captured a ghost in a movie theater. She took her kids out for a movie and took a selfie with her kids. And the picture shows something, or some little blob looking thing that she thinks is probably a ghost, in a section where there are no seats. Sort of photobombing the whole thing. Take a look at the picture. The article I'm sharing will have that, and see what you think. These days, it seems there are a lot of paranormal investigation teams and investigations going on everywhere, but they don't often happen with the live or with coverage from TV stations at the same time. But in the case of Mobile, Alabama, Barton Academy was investigated with the local news, 22 News, WWLP.com with them, and they did a news story about it, and that's featured. I've also added the video to our playlist of their investigation, so that's kind of cool stuff, and a little bit of a upgrade from just your standard investigations. They actually got some news coverage on it. Would you like to live in a haunted house? There's a home for sale in Corrales, New Mexico, and even the realtor's talking about some experiences that they had there. It's $850,000, and hey, you can get your own haunted house. Comes with a lot of history and apparently some ghosts. So I'll share the article and also the real estate listing. Maybe you're interested. According to the Edinburgh Sun in Scotland, A lady bought a home, and there apparently was an entertainment center left by the previous owner, and she took a photograph of it and didn't even notice it until her friends pointed it out. But it appears that there's an old man in the reflection in the TV, and they blew up the picture, and it certainly does look like an old man in that picture. Um, I don't have an explanation for it, other than maybe somebody messed with the picture, but, that's possible, but I don't know if that could have been what happened. But you can have a look at the picture and check out the article when I share it in the details section. There are those who say that the internet seems to have been invented for cat videos and porn. Well, you can combine cat movies with spooky videos and spooky movies by checking out a series of videos that have been put out of capturing a kitten watching horror movies and how it reacts to them. It's a great way to bring the whole cat film or cat video thing into the horror realm, and it's just plain a lot of fun and awfully cute. So I'll include the video link. You can the link to the article that has a ton of those videos. You can check that out. You really have to admire Ariana Grande's costume for Halloween. It's a cool nod to one of the probably better remembered Twilight Zone episodes. And it's a really well done costume. Apparently, it was all part of her Halloween party where she transformed her home into a haunted hotel. So, would have been cool to have an invite to that party. I bet that was a real fun, spooky event. If you're going to be traveling anywhere near Jonesboro, Tennessee, you might want to consider staying at the Eureka Inn. Um, it would be some definite paranormal travel, as the place is supposed to be quite haunted. It's very old, built in the 1700s, and it's just been renovated. And they're making a push to get the news out about the renovations and all that. And it should be pretty cool. So if you're going to be in the area, it sounds like a nice place to stay. I mean, nice place with or without the paranormal stuff. But if you're into the paranormal stuff, that's just a bonus. While not precisely UFO related or even spooky, if you're planning a trip around Joshua Tree, California, you may have seen a famous house that looks like a flying saucer. Well, it's now been turned into an Airbnb, and you can stay there. Um, that sounds like it would be a fun time. If you happen to be in the area, I don't know if it's worth making a special trip for, but I'm betting there are a lot of other things you can do while you're out there. So that just sounds like something that would be pretty cool, and it's sort of UFO related. While we missed it for Halloween time, an artist named Tisoki has released a new song called Evil as Hell with a spooky music video, so you should probably check that out. Definitely would have qualified for Halloween type news, but um, it's still spooky and it's still cool after Halloween. I'll be adding it to the playlist on our spooky music videos, and at some point I'm sure it'll wind up on the main page at spookyventures.com too. As a music journalist and someone who works inside the music industry in some ways, I'm not a huge fan of Pandora, but if you've been watching these clips, I am a fan of lists. And Pandora has a list of their 10 scariest songs of all time. The artists included in that list are Bauhaus, the Pixies, Nine Inch Nails, Joy Division, Lamb of God, Tool, Nirvana, Korn, A Perfect Circle, and Whitechapel. I like how it's all sort of heavy, darker stuff, which, spooky should be dark, right? Um, so, check out those songs, see what you think if they're also spooky. I'll be including the article which has the list so you can have a look for yourself. In any event, I love lists. They're always a good place to start looking at stuff. Another one we missed for Halloween was Pup, or P-U-P. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's spelled P-U-P, all in caps. Not sure if you pronounce it as Pup or just pronounce the letters. But in any event, they've released a new video for See You at Your Funeral that also fits nicely under the spooky videos, so that'll be getting added to our playlist. But be sure to have a look for that. Again, wish we'd found it before Halloween, but hey, better late than never, and it's always time for spooky music. And speaking of music lists, Herald Times Reporter has their own list of 10 spine tingling, scary, good, horror filled rock and metal songs. Their list of artists is a bit different. It includes Halloween, King Diamond. Come on, you can't have a spooky music list and not have King Diamond on it. The Beatles with Helter Skelter. Rob Zombie, again, you gotta have Rob Zombie on the list, right? Misfits, Alice Cooper, again. How can you miss Alice Cooper? Pink Floyd with One of These Days. Um, the Number of the Beast by Maiden. They got Slayer with Dead Skin Mask. And the number one is the song Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath. Now, that thing is pretty creepy, you got to admit. Man, I'm a little biased. Black Sabbath's my second favorite band. But in any event, this is another pretty cool list. And again, I love lists, so check it out. Some of these songs will probably be on our, well, some of them are already on our playlist. Some will probably be added. So have a look at that and see what you think. And there's another album that just came out by someone called The Game Brass. And the album is called Brassylvania, a tribute to the video game Macabre, which is a sample of some of the music from games like Silent Hill 2, Luigi's Mansion, Resident Evil, things like that. So a lot of spooky music for that. So be sure to check that out.
Well, it's no secret how much I love lists of things, and also music and horror. So a list that combines the two is pretty cool. And You Discover Music has best horror movie soundtracks, 20 essential spine-chilling film scores, and their list is pretty cool. Everything from Vertigo to The Thing, the John Carpenter version, which, you know what, John Carpenter, I'm a huge fan of John Carpenter, and he produces some awesome music for his movies. Um, so it certainly belongs on there. You get Land of the Dead, Dracula, the 1979 version, Blade, Near Dark, which has a Tangerine Dream soundtrack, which, as a prog guy, Tangerine Dream's right up there. But, Near Dark is, I don't know, it's a horribly underrated vampire film. It's really hard to get your hands on it these days, and, it kind of fell behind Lost Boys. Personally, I know Lost Boys has a lot of style, but it tends to be a little style over substance to me in some ways, whereas Near Dark is just a really, really awesome horror movie. Um, it's criminally underrated. So, the soundtrack is very cool too. Other movies on the list, you got Hellraiser, um, Zombie, It Follows, The Omen, which, come on, Rosemary's Baby, Psycho, which that's an amazing soundtrack, um, Jaws, Alien, uh, Halloween. That's so you've got a lot of really good movies. I only listed some of them on there, but you get the idea. And by the way, Halloween, you got another John Carpenter. You just can't beat John Carpenter for that kind of music. I mean, he's an awesome filmmaker and also an awesome musician. So um, check out that list and perhaps pick up some of those soundtrack albums.
There's another list of spooky songs. This time around, it comes from CMT News, and it's country songs. So I'm going to add some of those to the list, or to the playlist at Spooky Ventures, and I'll include the article, and you can have a look at those. They're artists ranging from Alan Jackson to Carrie Underwood, Garth Brooks, David Allan Coe, Shenandoah, David Ball, Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, and Willie Nelson all playing together. Uh, but there's a whole list of spooky songs from country artists that you can also check out. People always think about horror books like, fiction books, or even some nonfiction books, like some of the ones I've done for being spooky stuff. Um, but a lot of times you don't think about poetry. Now, there's a big poetry movement in the weird fiction sort of stuff. I did a video interview with Frank Coffman, one of our earliest video interviews, and he's well known for doing poetry. In fact, he was part of a symposium at the Lovecraft convention, Necronomicon, this year. And there's a new list that came out. Yep, again with me in the lists, right? At Book Riot, of 10 creepy, captivating horror poetry collections. So if you like poetry and like your stuff spooky, you probably wouldn't be here if you didn't like your stuff spooky. Um, there are all kinds of cool things here, from Satan's Sweethearts by Marge Simon, a collection of nightmares by Christine SNG, um, Morning Jewelry by Stephanie Waitovich, and
Choking Back the Devil by Donna Lynch. So, I'm not going to give you the whole list. And the list actually has information about each book and like a paragraph or so talking about it. So it's well worth checking out the list. The link is included in the details section of the video. So have a look at that. If you're interested in some spooky poetry, I suggest you check out those books. And by all means, check out Frank Coffman. The whole UFO phenomenon really exploded in the 20th century, particularly after the Roswell, New Mexico incident, whatever you believe actually happened there. But interestingly enough, there's a new book out by No Torres and John Lernay called The Real Cowboys and Aliens, Early American UFOs, which is all about UFO sightings in the 1800s. So you don't. That's something you don't really hear a lot about. There are all these legends and the stories from the 20th century keep getting retold, but you haven't really heard a lot about UFO reports in the 19th century. So this is certainly a book worth checking out for UFO fans, people who are into the whole UFO phenomenon. Um, it seems like a largely unexplored territory. Have you noticed that there's a lot of horror on television these days? And I'm not just talking about for Halloween. It's a whole series have come onto TV that are all based on horror. I mean, it kind of calls to mind the era when Dan Curtis ruled. If you haven't already checked it out, I did a review video of Kolchak the Night Stalker, the movies and series, and also Dan Curtis, a couple of his movies, and kind of talked a bit about how he was the king of television horror back in his day. So, look back in the YouTube channel, and find it. It's the most recent video review I've done. But we are sort of in an era like that. In fact, if anything, there's a lot more horror than there was then. And the Detroit News has an article kind of documenting how it all started, and how we wound up where we are, and trying to get into some of the whys of the whole new golden age of horror revival for television. And you know what? No matter the reason, it is an interesting read. But no matter the reason, it's really good to be around when we've got so many horror possibilities out there for us. For those of us who are fans of the spooky, there can be some really lean years, so it's good to be in a feast period here. So enjoy.
I did a bit last week about the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episodes, or maybe it was the week before. I don't remember. In any event, there's a plot synopsis that showed up in the listing of episodes for The Simpsons for this month, where it looks like they may be doing a scary Thanksgiving episode called Thanksgiving of Horror. So, or at least it's a plot title that sounds like it ought to be a scary Thanksgiving episode. So stay tuned to The Simpsons for Thanksgiving of Horror and see if it is indeed a spooky episode. It seems every year the stores keep pushing Christmas closer and closer to summer, and in the midst of that, they wind up right in the middle of Halloween stuff. Well, it's only fair that Halloween and the spooky season pushes its way back into Christmas. And there is a new list out from TVOM. I'm not sure what that is, but it's a website. And it has 5 of our favorite Christmas horror movies. I know you don't tend to think of Christmas horror movies, but of course there's Silent Night, Deadly Night. You got Black Christmas, The Nightmare Before Christmas, although that could be argued that's more Halloween, Gremlins, and Krampus. And so, you know what? I think there should be a lot more Christmas horror movies. That's nothing wrong. It should be spooky all year round, and that includes Christmas. Let's just keep it spooky the whole year. Books of Blood is a horror anthology from Clive Barker. It's getting made into a movie for Hulu. Now, the team making it might seem a little odd. You've got Brandon Braga, who's known for Star Trek The Next Generation and, of course, the Orville now, and his Orville partner, Seth MacFarlane, both working on it. And I think that's sort of put off a lot of people, but hey, a lot of people are interested in a lot of different things, and if Seth MacFarlane wants to do horror, apparently he's stepped into it a bit with a couple things in the past. There's no reason to believe that he can't do it well. I know he surprised me with the Orville, so we'll see what happens. There are some interesting Blu-rays just now out that should be something a lot of horror fans will be looking for. First, there's a big box set of Godzilla movies. Secondly, there's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which get some pretty good reviews. And finally, there's a Blu-ray, the first Blu-ray release of The Blob. Now, we're not talking the 50s version, it's the 80s version remake. And I know a lot of people either love that or hate it. I thought it was a pretty good movie. I don't think I did either love it or hate it, but it's well worth seeing again, I think, as I remember. If Halloween gets pushed out by Christmas, just think how Thanksgiving feels. Well, there's an article from Screen Rant that lists a number of movies that are great horror movies that are set at Thanksgiving. Everything from Blood Rage to Home Movie to The Stepfather. You got The Bath, Christie, Dean Koontz Intensity. The 10 movies on the list, and I'll share the list. I don't think I've seen any of the movies on that list, but it's something to check out, and definitely good to bring the spooky to Thanksgiving. Now, for fans of H.P. Lovecraft, there are a couple news items I'm going to kind of lump into one here, because they both surround the same movie. The new Color Out of Space movie by Nick Cage, with Nick Cage in it, has just dropped an official trailer, and I don't know about you guys, but I think it looks really good. sure, they made changes, but unless they were going to make it a period piece, they had to make a lot of changes. But it looks pretty darn scary. And then there's a news item about it. Oh, by the way, I heard from some sources unofficially that it's supposed to come out late in January, but I don't know how wide the distribution will be or anything. But in any event, also I saw an article that said that that's actually the first of a trilogy that are all going to be inside a shared Lovecraft universe. The next one's going to be the Dunwich Horror, and apparently they couldn't decide for a while which one they were going to do first. The Dunwich Horror might have been the first one, but instead they went with Color Out of Space. So Dunwich Horror will be next. I don't think the article said which one was going to be the third movie, but there's going to be a whole trilogy apparently. At least that's the plan so far. Which, I mean, that would be really, really cool for them to do a shared Lovecraft universe series. So we'll see. I know a lot of people have been already seeing Dr. Sleep. There have been some limited engagements and things like that, but it officially opens today. So get out there and see that. It's the sequel to The Shining. Apparently, it makes an attempt anyway at reconciling the differences between the book and Kubrick's film. So we'll see what happens with that. Also, there's some birthdays coming up. Today is Bram Stoker's birthday, and Sunday is Claude Rains' birthday and Neil Gaiman's birthday. So those are some guys who are big in horror and sort of legendary, and enjoy. And that's a wrap for this edition of Spooky News. Be sure to check back next week when we'll have a new one. And I should have a spooky review segment coming up next Wednesday. In the meantime, we'll have more radio shows, audio books, that kind of stuff coming up as well. So enjoy and keep it spooky. Spooky Ventures is the home for spooky content and spooky merchandise on the web. Check it out today at spookyventures.com. And remember, always keep it spooky.